You're trying to win your NFL survivor pool. It's getting down to the nitty gritty. You're a little bit nervous. You can almost feel it. You can taste it. You can start to spend that money already. It's already Christmas money that you're going to be able to spend. And now you're getting nervous, more and more nervous with each one of those picks. Well, I'm here to kind of calm those nerves, help you out, and guide you all the way to the finish line. I want to see all of you win your NFL survivor pools. And I've got some strategies and analysis that I think are unique to YouTube. Those of you who have been with me for a while now, you understand that. For those of you who are new, please hang around and watch the entire video and see if you agree. I, of course, am Statsational, professional sports bettor, professional DFS player, former Wall Street trader, and now I'm here helping you guys out in Survivor Pool. So hopefully I've got some knowledge and some analysis that I could bring to the table that'll help you guys. And when we're down to the nitty-gritty, and we're down to the nitty-gritty primarily because last week we had just an onslaught of damage and chaos in Survivor Pools, namely Tampa losing to New Orleans. That knocked out 60-some-odd% of people in most pools. If you looked over on Circa, I believe it was 61% of Circa pools, the Circa entries had Tampa. Another 11% had Cleveland. On the whole, 78% of the participants over in Circa were eliminated, and that comes a week after all those Thanksgiving knockouts that they had there. So they're down to 10 people in Circa, started with over 18,000. I'm sure your pool as well is getting down to just very few. I know some of you are still in some larger pools, and I've already heard from some of you guys. The fact that I'm getting messages from you guys on Tuesday, even some of you on Monday already looking ahead, that just tells me the anxiety is building up. So I'm hoping that maybe I can alleviate some of the anxiety, hopefully, for you. But, once those games kick off, all of those emotions, everything starts bubbling up. It's why we love to play. It's the fun of it. But ultimately, we're trying to win all of the cash that is on the line. So I look forward to taking you guys and assisting you on your journey. But ultimately, you're the guys who do it. You are the ones who are making those picks. And a lot of you are doing really, really well because I'm hearing from you guys down in the comments. So as always, guys, let me know what your situation is. And specifically as we get down to the nitty gritty and to the end here, I need to know not only who you have left, I really need to know what your opponents have left. And we need to look at the rest of the season as well. We're in week 15 here of the NFL. You've got week 15, 16, 17, 18 in most pools. Some of you are in double elimination pools or double pick pools, I should say. Some of you, those of you who are in Circa, I know some of you watch, there's only 10 left in Circa. If any of you are watching, of course, you've got the Christmas games that you're going to have to play, similar to the Thanksgiving games, which knocked out a good chunk, almost everyone in the Circa pools. They're going to have to do that again if it gets down to Christmas. That would be week 17A. So you guys are looking at that as well. Hard to do these videos and really gear them and cater them to all of you, but I try to do the best I can. Really, the comments are where we can dig into some of the details of your pool. So again, just give me as much information as you possibly can. I read them all. At least I try to. If I miss any of you guys, it's not intentional. Sometimes I just don't see the notification, but I do try to go through and look at all of your comments and then try to assist. But ultimately, like I said, you guys are making the call. I'm just here for a little bit of guidance. In some situations, there are just right calls to make and wrong calls. But those are rare. Sometimes it's just obvious. Now, last week I thought was an obvious choice was if you had one of the team, if you had the Rams, if you had Denver for sure, if you had them available to you, and maybe Seattle, you had to take them last week in your pool. In almost every pool, you really had to take those teams because we had such a huge percentage of people. We were estimating about 61%, and that's right about where pools came in. About 60 to 61% came in on Tampa. That's such a high number, right? And then when we looked at our spreadsheet, I'm going to get to the spreadsheet now. When we looked at the spreadsheet, we saw that we had that 12% and change number in that column that I just refused to actually add a header to this. I really need to, right? But this is the column that is simply just figuring out what's the expected value or really the expected percentage of your pool to be eliminated on this pick. And that was over 12% last week when we looked at the Tampa game. That was the highest number that we had seen all season. And what it's doing is taking the probability of the team losing and then the pick percentage. So as we increase pick percentage, of course, if this number goes up to 50%, this number here is going to increase to 6. You're going to notice also the threshold column changes. So let's just start talking. Let's jump into it right now. We're starting out now. This is what Survivor Grid has currently. And I had to do this video on Tuesday night. So when you guys are watching this on Wednesday morning, these numbers more than likely will change. Probably not drastically, but they may change. And if anything happens as far as injury-wise to any of these teams overnight, I apologize, and we may get a drastic line move here. But let me hide this column. We don't need it. As you guys know, I always put in the line from both sides. I take the midpoint here on the money line. We convert that to a implied probability. That's your win odds, the implied odds that this team's going to win. All right. This is the future value. The lower this number is, the more future value they have. But we're at the point in the season, guys. Future value means very, very little. Now, some of you went and took Cleveland last week. I didn't like Cleveland unless you were maybe in a really large pool and you were just hoping that Cleveland would win and Tampa would lose, and you really didn't have all of those other better options at the high pick percentage. But to me, on the whole, taking Cleveland really didn't give you as big an advantage, and they wound up only being about a 3.5, 4-point favorite in that game. So they were not a play that I necessarily loved taking because so many others were taking them in your pools. You probably had 10 to 15% of your pool taking them. If you're going to make those plays, if we're going to get off, let's talk about pools that have a larger amount. You got over 100 people still left, and we're down to the last 4 weeks here of the season, and you're just hoping that maybe you can catch a team or fade, let's say, the team that's going to be heavily taken, like a Tampa last week. If you're going to do that, let's get on a team that no one else has. Because if we do get the absolute chaos, now we're sitting pretty. And that's where we're at when we lost Cleveland last week and you lost Tampa. Anyone who was on any other team is probably down to just a handful of people left in their pool, outside of some of you who were just in these massive pools, right? So I expect a lot of the comments that I'm going to be getting this week are going to be really specific to your pool, and I may be suggesting San Francisco to you. It's going to be obviously dependent on who you have left and who your opponents have left. So I may suggest every one of these teams at some point to different one of you in the comments, and that's not because I'm hedging my bets. It's because San Francisco is going to work really well for some of you, Jacksonville maybe for others, Philly for others, right? So we'll see how that's going to play out based on your pools. But let's kind of go over it from the 30,000 feet above level and just look at who the biggest favorites are this week. Seattle, a team virtually no one could take. I said if you could take them last week, I would have taken them. If you happen to have had Seattle on one of these other teams like the Rams and you survived, you still have Seattle left. I think it's a no-brainer at this point. You're going to take Seattle. Hardly anyone, probably you're the only one left in your pool who can take them. You're going to want to jump on Seattle. Anytime you can get, I've mentioned this in the comments, guys, anytime you can get the team that is a higher win probability than the team that's being taken the most in the pool, or at least the 2 or 3 teams that are being taken most in the pool, like this week, where we're going to get about 70% of people on San Francisco, Jacksonville, and Philly. If you can get the one team that has a higher win percentage or win probability than those teams, you almost want to always take it. And especially now at this point in the season where we're so late, Seattle may have other options, and we'll see. We'll go to Survivor Grid and see what the other picks are for them, potential picks for the rest of the year. But when you can get yourself in those spots, you want it. It's much better than getting yourself although Chicago's got a 78% chance to win this week, but the example of Cleveland last week with a 60, whatever their percentage was, 65, 66% chance, not nearly as strong a play. Plus, you've got a lot of people on them, right? So the fact that you've got 11, 12% people on Chicago makes them less enticing, whereas Dallas, okay, much lower probability. But if I happen to have taken Dallas here in my pool and I've got others that are taking higher it's a bad example here with Dallas because the gap here, 8%, is large. But let's see if we could get, certainly a Houston. Let's take them in a vacuum, right? Houston in a vacuum, and we don't need them for the rest of the season. Houston would be a far superior pick, even with needing them for the rest of the season. And we're gonna look at what the rest of the season looks like than a Chicago, because we're getting them over. If we had a team at 77% being taken at 1.1 percent, let's just change this to 77%. You see here the threshold, and I don't typically use threshold for this purpose, but you see their threshold is actually higher, meaning the threshold column is the column that we're using in order to gauge if what a good team would be to fade the team in question. Sounds a little confusing. Let's take San Francisco for example. If 30%, 28, almost 30% of your pool is going to take San Francisco, you're going to still need a team with an 84% or better win probability in order to justify fading them. That's just not enough people taking them at such a high win probability for it to be worth it. Last week, different story. 60% of people on a team that was, what were they, about 80%-ish, right? 80, low 80%, whatever it was to win. That with 60%, we had a much lower, it was like you only needed 60%, a team with a 60% win probability or higher last week with Tampa. This week, not as many people taking them, so the fade is not as strong, right? You look at Philly, you could take a team, let's say 83%, if you wanted to fade Philly. Jacksonville is going to be higher because we've got a lower probability, lower pick percentage, I should say, on the Jaguars than we do on San Francisco, even though we don't have that big of a gap, a little over a percentage, 1 percentage point more of a win probability for San Francisco. But what we're seeing is this threshold is going to be higher, right? Also, what you're going to see is this column be higher. So we've got 3.5, which is relatively low, and 3.4, again, relatively low. Not something that is screaming, I have to fade. You get down to Chicago here, they're at a 2.6. If this starts increasing, if we get up to 20% here on Chicago, all of a sudden this becomes the team with the highest expected loss. We're expecting 4.4%. If 20% of your pool picks Chicago, we would expect 4.4% of all entries gone, right? That would be 4.4 between 4 and 5 if you had 100 entries left in your pool. But as it stands now, we're looking at about 11.7%, 2.6. So my point here is we don't have as drastic a play to fade as we did last week. With that being said, if you do have Seattle as a potential option, I think it's a no-brainer. You've got to take them. But otherwise, Houston would be your other consideration. And let's just jump over to Survivor Grid because that's going to kind of clear up things a little bit. A lot of these teams, obviously, you guys have taken a lot of them already. So that's why Seattle just can't be taken. All right, had this sorted for week 16. Let's look at week 15 for you guys. And Seattle, the number one option. San Francisco, let's just go Seattle. I don't think it matters. If you have Seattle, yeah, the game at Carolina, I mean, that was a game that Carolina was able to beat the Rams. I don't think this is going to be an 8.5-point spread. It's going to be a little bit lower than that. But this is it. We didn't expect Indianapolis to be the game, which is why you most likely did not save Seattle for this spot. But if somehow you wound up stumbling on an entry here that has yet to take Seattle, you are in the best situation of anyone in your pool. You can probably win the entire pool. I don't care how many people, just about how many people are left in your pool. There's a chance you can win with Seattle if you get another week like last week. Now, is San Francisco going to lose at home to Tennessee? Highly unlikely. But the market is right now telling you it's a slightly higher probability that happens than Seattle loses at home to Indianapolis with no quarterback, right? So I would say here, obviously, it's going to be dependent on who you have left. If you've got no choice, San Francisco's an option for you, but you've taken Jacksonville, you've taken Philly, you've taken Houston, and you've taken Seattle. Don't worry. Don't start looking here. I would not get on Chicago because I want to differentiate myself. All right. This may be the case with 4 or 5 left in the pool. That's a different story. Right. We may have 4 left, 5 left in your pool, something like that. And the other 4, you're convinced are going to be on San Francisco. And then we have a discussion that we have to have at that point. Let's actually go back quick let's go to the spreadsheet and have that discussion quickly. Right. Because now we're talking about, let's say 80% of your pool, you're convinced here. No one has anyone else left. Everyone's going to go on San Francisco. Now you can take a shot with a Chicago or whoever the best team is that you have left. And by best team, I mean highest win probability. Is it Chicago? Is it Houston? I think Houston's a strong play regardless, outside of the fact that you may need them in the future. But then it becomes a different story here. Now we've got such a high pick percentage on that team. But if we drop it down to 60, if we've got that same 5 and now only 3, well, now we've got to take a team at 75% or better. Still kind of brings the Bears into play, but we're not as confident on that. So I always err on the side of, if I'm unsure, I'm just going to go ahead and take I'm going to take San Francisco. I'm not going to get tricky. The other big factor here in whether or not you're going to fade a team that has a high pick percentage is going to be what I look like here for the future. Right? So what does the rest of my season look like? And not just what does it look like relative to my opponents? That's the key here, because if I've got a situation where, okay, this week I could take San Francisco, but I think everyone's going to take San Francisco. And I'm like, well, do I take San Francisco? My other option is Chicago. I don't have Houston, Philly, Jacksonville, Seattle. So you look at it, you're like, well, I got a shot here. I could take Chicago. I think the other four are going to take San Francisco. Do I take that shot? Part of what's going to determine that is what I have the rest of the way. If I had Kansas City looming next week and I was the only one, well, why would I take that shot this week? Right? Why am I going to take a chance in a week before I even get to the week where I'm the favorite? So look at it. Do I have a week where I'm just going to be a massive favorite? If I'm the only one left in my pool of Kansas City, I'm going to be a huge favorite. No one has Buffalo. There's a good chance no one has Buffalo left in your pool. Houston may be already taken by everyone in your pool. You're down to the point where maybe someone has Detroit left or Philly or North. You may be one person could take Houston and no one could take a team better than New Orleans next week. And you've got Kansas City. Now, why in the world would you try to get tricky this week and risk this week when you have the huge advantage next week? Now, conversely, you're looking at week 16. You've taken Kansas City. You've taken Buffalo. You've taken Houston. You've taken Detroit. You've taken Philly. You've got New Orleans as your best option at home against the Jets, or Denver home against Jacksonville. I'm taking my shot here. This is my shot. I don't want to get to week 16. I got one of my opponents has Kansas City. One of them has Houston left, right? And the other two have Philly. Well, I'm going to be sitting here with the weakest team. I got to choose between New Orleans. I probably don't even have Denver. I got to choose between New Orleans, maybe Tampa on the road. Let's look at some of these spreads here for next week. I'll give you the lines. If you have the Sharp app, I tell you guys all the time, with the app, we could look at, actually, I could probably bring it up on the screen. If we get the web version, if we've got it, sometimes the web doesn't have the games for next week. Let's see. It does. All right. Let me bring that up for you guys. So this is just looking at the money line. Let's look at it from a point spread. Right. It's probably just be easier for you guys to read it as a point spread. But let's look. All right. We've got all the lines for this week, and I've only got a couple of books in here. I could add in Pinnacle, which I like to do for this purpose. The sharpest book. Actually, Pinnacle lines aren't available yet for next week. So, we won't have any Pinnacle lines. So we'll look at the DraftKings. We'll look at FanDuel. We'll look at Caesars. We got a million different books in here that you can choose from. But let's look at those for now. Who are the biggest lines here next week? So I mentioned the Kansas City game. Bills are 8.5-point favorites right now next week. 12.5-point favorites, Houston, right? So that's what I'm talking about with Survivor Grid. Survivor Grid is only has that as an 8-point line or 8.5, whatever they had it at, right? So Houston really is the number one team here next week as far as the point spread goes. San Francisco, we're looking at 6.5 points over the Colts right now. Who knows where that line's going to go, depending on what the quarterback situation looks like there. 5.5 points, Philly at Washington, right? So if you don't have one of these teams, you're going to play totally different come next week or come this week. Because if you are looking at week 16 and you're just in a really bad situation, we got to take the risk now. This is a much better risk, right? I could get a 7.5-point favorite here with the Bears. I'm going to take a shot, or maybe go out on if I had Arizona, if I had Houston, that I wouldn't be in that situation, right? Because I'm going to be in a great situation next week. But maybe I'm going to take a shot with the Bears and hope everyone else is on San Francisco, and just hope that I can win the pool this week because I'm in bad shape for week 16. And you're going to do that with week 17 and week 18 as well, right? Week 18, we talk about it. It's always tough to kind of figure week 18 because you don't know who's going to be clinched at that point. So that's a key thing, and that's the reason I'm going to be asking you guys a lot. Well, what do your opponents have here for week 16? What's your week 16 look like? Because that's going to determine how aggressive we're going to be in week 15. Do we counterfeit everybody and just take the pick that everyone else is taking? We do that. we're going to tend to do that a whole lot more if we've got a big advantage later on, week 16 or 17. If we're just in a really bad situation, then we've got to take the Hail Mary here in week 15. So that's one major thing. The other thing is, of course, we're constantly looking at hedging at this point. The night games, Sunday night game and the Monday night game, not exactly great games as far as Survivor is going to, as Survivor is concerned, but Seattle, again, unlikely you're going to be taking them, but that is a 4:00 game. And you've got San Francisco at 4:00, which is a game, of course, that's going to be of a lot of interest. So if things shake up at 1:00, having the San Francisco game is also going to be able to maybe afford you a better hedging opportunity. If you think about it, last week, Tampa loses at 1:00. You had the Cleveland game at 1:00. You are now sitting there. You had the Rams last week at 4:00. And you were in a much different situation to hedge. You might have started with over 100 people in your pool, and you were now down to maybe 20. All of a sudden, you weren't even thinking about hedging, and now potentially you were going to hedge. I'm in a pool with my double picks pool. I was out a couple of weeks ago. That pool went down. They lost, I think, all but two people are left now in that pool. We started with 1,300. DraftKings pool. My only real option last week was Tampa, unfortunately. So that knocked me out of that pool. But for those of you who were lucky enough or skilled enough to have been able to have one of those other teams available to you that we mentioned last week, most of those teams played in the late afternoon. That gave you a really good hedging opportunity. If that happens again here this week, if we lose a Jacksonville at 1:00, if Philly, which I believe is a 1:00 game as well. So if we got Philadelphia, at 1:00. I mean, if Philly and Jacksonville were to lose, boy, that's really going to shake up your pool and potentially get you down to 2 or 3 people who are all just sitting on that San Francisco game. That's going to give you a much stronger idea for hedging purposes, especially if that pool, if you get down to the point where it's you have San Francisco, it's down to San Francisco. If San Francisco wins, you're going to advance with maybe a couple of other people. If San Francisco loses, everybody's back in the hunt. And most pools do it that way, where if everyone loses in a week, everyone who started that week continues. You looked at the Grandissimo, though, everyone got knocked out a couple of weeks ago, and they all chopped the pot. So definitely check the rules of your pool on what happens if everyone gets knocked out, because that's going to change how you hedge. So again, message me here. We could talk about your hedging strategies. You could try and message me during the 1:00 games if it looks like things are going to change. And or just shoot me an email, john@sharp.app, if you want to try me there as well, or hit me up on Twitter or X, and try to send me a DM over there. If I get it in time and I can help you guys out, I'm always willing to do that for you. So we're down to the end. It's not just about picking the winners. We're trying to pick optimally. That's a key. We're trying to pick optimally. Above all, we want to pick optimally until we get ourselves in a situation where maybe a little game theory is worthwhile. But if you're confused, you're not sure, you don't know if everyone's going to be on San Francisco, you're unsure, I'd rather play it safer. All right, so that's rule 1. 2, we don't want to play it safe if we're on a really bad situation coming up in the upcoming weeks. If we're going to be a huge underdog next week, then we need to take the approach here where we could potentially win the pool if that situation presents itself. We're going to take more risk. This is with everything. This is investing. This is sports betting. This is sports, right? We're going to shoot more threes. We're going to throw deeper passes, riskier pass. We're going to risk throwing passes into double coverage when we're losing, right? When we're winning, we're going to play a little bit more conservative. We're going to dink and dunk, hand the ball off. This is what happens in these type of pools. If we're at a huge disadvantage, we got to take some flyers. We got to take a chance, maybe take a team with a lower probability of winning and hope that builds us some equity while everyone else is on the big favorites. We've got a huge advantage. We've give all the good teams left. We could take the optimal path to week 18, let everyone else play that game. We're going to play the optimal game and see how that works for us. That's going to, of course, give us the highest probability of winning. So it all depends, right? We can hedge. It drives me nuts when people want to hedge and they don't really understand hedging. Like, it's very hard to hedge when you're not in a very good situation as far as equity goes in anything. You want to hedge against an option in stocks or currencies in the old days of when I was trading currencies, right? It's really hard to put a hedge on when you or to hedge against an option when that option is not moving in your favor. If the you're buying calls on whatever the asset may be, and the price keeps moving down against you, well, it's hard to really hedge. You're not really hedging. I mean, I suppose you could still call it a hedge, right? But ultimately, a great hedge is when you can kind of take some profits and take equity off the table. That's what we're looking to do here. So now we're starting to get into situations where we're deep into the pool. We've built a lot of equity. When you're trying to hedge in week 2 and you've built $10 worth of equity into and you've got $1,000 worth of entries in your pool, we can't really do that, right? It doesn't make much sense. Now you've put $1,000 in entries in your pool and you've got $30,000 worth of equity. Let's start taking some of that equity off the table. I'm fully there. I'm with you. So that we could do that with hedging, of course. And if you want any help with that, of course, down in the comments. All right, guys. Again, also, I just want to just quickly thank all of you guys with the really nice comments about Ray last week, one of the partners here at the app. I really appreciate it. Quite honestly, we've got, doing this, I've met some of the most amazing people. It's not something that you expect when you do videos on YouTube. You don't even expect anyone to watch them. And then just, I've met a lot of friends here. I've met some just amazing people, and I hope to meet more of you virtually and hopefully in person one day. So I really do appreciate all of you guys who hang in there. You guys watch. Some of you are eliminated. Some of you have won your pools already, and you're still hanging in there and watching. For those of you who are new and you've made it this far, hopefully you got a little something out of this, and hopefully you'll survive till next week and get even more out of these videos. And to help you be notified as to when these videos appear, just hit the subscribe here to this channel. We're going to have more videos of this sort and hopefully more sports betting videos. I've got a book on props are probably my bread and butter right now in sports betting. And I just wrote about 26 chapters on prop betting. And now I'm going through the editing process and we're adding images and all that. Who knows how long it's going to take. Hopefully not much longer, but I would love to send some of you guys some free copies of that book so I could get your honest opinion of it. So hopefully when that drops, I'll send a few of those out to you guys, and you guys can let me know what you think. So I appreciate it. It's a lot of info, as it usually is each and every one of these weeks. And thank you all once again. I will see you next week. Let me know when you guys win your pool and for how much, and we can celebrate together. Good luck.